Passing Thoughts of a Firefighter by F.J.Bates, Chapter 3, The First Big One. June 2nd, 1944 was a hot, sultry day. The hot, humid weather was evident even in the early morning. On this day, my shift had the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. duty. The Engine 1 crew was checking the equipment and polishing the brass when a fast time box tapped in. The Engine 1 crew, including myself, began putting gear on. The box was pulled on Jefferson Avenue, and as we turned the corner from headquarters onto Washington Street, heavy clouds of black smoke looked as if they were touching the sky. The two old-timers that were with me on the rear lifted the deck canvas as a line was going to be laid. As we turned into the fire scene, I saw the Boston, Maine freight shed completely involved, apparently from end to end. Heavy flames were showing, with tremendous heat radiating in the direction of the wind. Internal explosions added to what I thought was a conflagration, and as this was my first big fire, I never thought we would put it out. Quickly grabbing the hydrant and pulling off the gates and wrench from the back of the truck were the tasks performed by the two old-timers. My orders were to stay on the rear board. The hose and couplings dropped off as we pulled ahead into the fire area. As the apparatus stopped, the orders were to break the line and put the pipe on. The tremendous heat emitting from the fire caused the skin of my face to feel all aflame. The black, acrid smoke was burning my eyes, causing tears to flow down my hot cheeks. Breathing became difficult due to the heavy volume of smoke that had quickly engulfed the complete area. Only by feel did the threads of the pipe catch the hose. Lieutenant Harvey Nichols ordered the line stretched, and he simultaneously called for the hydrant to be opened. The line was stretched toward one of the large bay doors. While flames still roared high above the freight terminal, Lieutenant Nicholas and fireman Martin Murphy, Bill Turner, and Albert DeBoa forced the sliding door of the bay adjoining the two-story office building. When the door was fully opened, the line was advanced to the inside. At this point, heavy smoke conditions were present along with the intense heat. I could not help thinking, will I ever get through it at all? Suddenly a voice from one of the firemen cried out, "There is a man in here!" And lying on the floor of the freight shed was the body of one of the employees. This male was believed to have been trapped when a drum of the inflammables consigned to the Bay State Belting Company, which was just inside the fourth doorway, exploded, scattering flames, smoke, and fumes throughout the structure. The crew of Engine 1 assisted in removing the body to the outside where the ambulance was standing by. The speed with which the fire was brought under control astonished the thousands of spectators who lined the streets for blocks around, grimly viewing the raging inferno. At the onset, it appeared likely that the high winds would sweep the westerly side of the yard, in which several freight cars were reduced to ashes. Within 100 feet of the flaming freight cars lay the office and yard of the Salem Lumber Company. They were directly in the path of the raging fire, and a shift of the wind could have swept the fire against the plant of the Wilkinson Counter Company directly across the street. Billows of smoke blacked out the bright sunshine. We sweltered in the heat in the heart of the dull red area that enveloped the westerly side of the freight house as the fire grew in intensity. Flaming embers were carried high into the air by a powerful updraft to rain down on dwellings and brush in the vicinity. Meanwhile, all companies worked feverishly under the command of Chief Arthur F. Flynn and his chief officers. Quite a few of these officers I did not know at this time. At times I could see many lines of hose stretched like spaghetti through the yard, and these lines were drenching the freight shed from every angle. According to workers, the fire started under a creosoted log on the outside of the building at the Fourth Bay entrance. One worker stated that the place was a mass of flames within 2 or 3 minutes, and when we arrived, half of the large freight shed was a roaring inferno. Hampering engine companies from getting a good shot at the fire on the Castle Hill side was a line of freight cars which stretched the whole length of the loading platform. Most of these were burnt, as was a work car a couple of tracks away. Whipped into a frenzy by a fairly stiff breeze, the middle section of this structure seemed to melt away as the flames devoured the tinder-dry, one-story wooden building. The chief officers were fearful that the burning embers carried along on the breeze would endanger the nearby industrial concern, and they immediately concentrated several heavy lines on that side to prevent the fire from getting beyond bounds. Meanwhile, on the Canal Street side, one line was played into the first bay to stop the fire from getting into the office building. Our line was still passing water into the 6th doorway, and the fire was stopped from entering the exposed area. There were 15 acetylene tanks in one of the freight cars, and they were still burning at 11 a.m. And they did not explode, as all were equipped with a safety fuse which had let go and permitted the gas to burn slowly. A major factor in the exceptional speed with which the fire spread was the creosote-treated wood used in the construction of the building, a part of which had been just recently rebuilt. The low, rambling structure had 11 double-sized doorways in all, and the entire section between the 2nd and 6th bays was completely destroyed. Bill Gorman, an employee of Monroe and Arnold, was one of the first to discover the fire, and Dave Whitehead put the call through to fire headquarters. When Dave called, he told the desk man to send the whole department, as the fire was that serious. The telephone call was received at 8:33 a.m., followed by the signal box 35. Chief Flynn, I found out later, called for the general alarm, bringing all companies to the scene of the fire. Covering companies from Peabody took over at fire headquarters. We stayed on the scene all day long, overhauling all the contents of the freight cars and wetting everything down. That night I returned home, tired to the brink of exhaustion, with a face that was deep red from the heat, with bones and muscles that ached from head to toe. But despite everything, I was so happy that I had made the grade. I thought of a poem and thanked the good Lord and the centuries of firemen that must have steadied my hands when I held the nozzle at this, my first general alarm fire. Esprit de corps. O Lord, give me strength that I may keep on fighting until I die. That insidious, omnipotent foe, the spark of hell's unholy glow. Though all the heavens roll with smoke, and tears may come and I may choke, let flames approach until my feet, I still must stay and not retreat. Place a nozzle in my hand, give me water and I will stand, though Satan's hordes should bar the way, till take up sounds on judgment day. There before me in the waters gleam, in the thick black smoke and the silver stream, a ghastly company of men is coming, dragging hose carts or with buckets running. Wild-eyed horses strain against the night as the engineers keep the boilers alight. In eternal distance, like the sounding of a knell, I can hear the tolling and the clanging of a bell. An eerie siren pierces some far-off night to bring a phantom crew to aid me in the fight. The trumpets of the officers blast silent commands to the centuries of firemen that steady my hands. O Lord, give me strength that I may keep on fighting till I die. May I keep thy children from all harm till I roll out to thy last alarm. Fireman Charles S. W. Rubel, Engine Company 213, New York City Fire Department.